Hello everyone, I am Amita from NourishDoc, a platform for natural and holistic therapies. We are bringing you every single day a new topic in holistic and natural medicine. In our session today, we are going to be talking about the correlation of our sleep, how well we sleep with our gut health. And joining me is Dr. Lorena. She is a MD in Hong Kong law. She's joining me from Hong Kong. She's board certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. She's an MD. Hi there. How are you, Dr. Lorena?
Hi. Oops, sorry.
Okay.
How are you, Amita?
Well,
having
looks
some
like this is
technical
your first
issues.
Insta Live, so welcome.
Thank you. Finally, I'm happy to join in.
Great. So I was telling our viewers, we're just getting started. We're just telling them the topic is the correlation of gut health and sleep. So what happens? So joining me is Dr. Lorena from Hong Kong. She is MD. She is certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, and also an advanced follower in anti-aging, metabolic, and functional medicine. Anything else you'd like to add before we go into the topic of gut health and sleep, Dr. Lorena?
So thank you so much for having me. I'm really appreciative of this opportunity to share some of the cases and some of the strategies that I see often on a day-to-day basis, which in my conventional training or allopathic training, we were never really taught how to address them. So in my own profession, I actually went and did further study in nutritional medicine. So it allowed me to really look into some of the root causes of why we have certain symptoms, even before they start to become a disease or a condition. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm happy to share and would like to talk a bit about the gut health.
All right. So let's just understand, we have, we all, I think most of us have read about the connection, the gut health and the, spinal axis and the brain connection. The new thing, the new studies that are coming out is the gut health now is also related with our sleep. So let's talk about how that correlation works with the sleep and the gut health.
So it's really interesting because a lot of the times we think, okay, our thoughts and our patterns can affect our gut. So the classic butterfly in the stomach, when we're really anxious and we're anticipating some type of stress, then we get gut symptoms like cramping or nausea. But what we don't realize is that there is actually something called a bidirectional relationship. So that means bi means two. So it means that not only do our brains affect our gut health, but also it goes the other way around. So whatever happens in our gut actually can be connected to our brains. So scientists actually started to discover this mainly because we realized that in our gut, we actually have a lot of bacteria. And so this is what we call the microbiome. So it's a whole family of different kinds of species of bacteria. Some are good for us, majority are good for us, but some can be quite harmful. So there's always this balance between good bacteria and harmful bacteria that's going on in our guts. So the reason why that's important is because these bacteria actually produce substances, and these substances affect our immune system. And they also have influence on the nervous system that actually sits in our gut. So a lot of people don't realize this, but we also have a very rich nervous system called the enteric nervous system that supplies reactions in our gut and sends signals back to our brain. So this is a really important connection. So it's not just our brain to the gut, but it's also the gut to the brain.
So that's interesting. So there's a two-way street that's going on from top to bottom here. We have this highway the cars are going back and forth, right, between the two highways, like at a God knows what speed here, right? That's what we're talking about between gut and brain. So let's talk about, it's interesting. I was reading a research article on the connection between the gut microbiome, which you said right now, the circadian and disturbance and depression. So all this is all interrelated. And so how does this whole thing work? You know, the circadian disturbance, depression, you know, depression is a mental disorder, and gut microbiome, which we know, and then the sleep. So how does this all come into play?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting discovery, but also, and also this actually already is in the allopathic medical literature, because what we have realized is there's a condition called celiac disease. So celiac disease is an autoimmune reaction to gluten in foods. So when these types of people who have this autoimmune condition eat gluten foods, which are breads and pastas, it can actually cause a disturbance in the actual gut itself in terms of the cells. And we realize there's a condition called celiac-induced psychosis, which means that when you eat a certain food, the disruption in the gut actually affects the person's the mental health. So they can have hallucinations, they can have up and down moods, they can have sleep disturbances. So even in the conventional paradigm, we understand, or the allopathic paradigm, we understand that there is a connection here. But what's also important is that if you don't have celiac, which is only a small proportion of people, most people can still have a disruption in their gut flora, which affects the gut permeability. And then that has a relationship with chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation is something that we don't often feel immediately straight away. It's not acute. It's not straight away like you have something that is a trauma to you and then you get inflamed or swell straight away. Chronic inflammation is a little bit more low grade. So that's when our immune system overreacts to what is actually in its environment. So if you have an imbalance of gut flora, or even if you're eating certain foods that are toxic to you, that itself can trigger the immune system of the gut. So why that's important is because about 70% of our immune system actually lies in the gut.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these, this level of what we call tissue inflammation, so it's low-grade chronic tissue inflammation, this actually sends what we call inflammatory mediators. So these are signals that go around our body to recruit more and more white blood cells, because white blood cells are really important for the immune system. So they're recruited into the gut, but they also have a reaction in our brain, because actually there are cells in our brain that acts as an immune system as well. So they participate in this chronic low-grade inflammation. Now, because our brains are really important, particularly when you talk about the circadian rhythm, the hypothalamus and pituitary are very sensitive to the daylight and to nighttime. So they release hormones that actually is what we recognize as circadian. So cortisol, for example, is released by the adrenals, and that's really important for daytime wakefulness. So we actually have hormones that do that. And then at nighttime, we have something called melatonin. And so that's actually really important for sleep. And then during the daytime, for our mental health and mood, we have brain chemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, and histamine. So all these hormones work together to keep us awake in the daytime. And then they are changing at nighttime to help us sleep and to keep us asleep.
Got it. So when we say circadian disturbance, that means we're disturbing that circadian rhythm, like, you know, yes. Because what you're talking about is hormones that work during the day that keep us awake, and hormones that at night, like melatonin, that keeps us asleep. So if we start doing the opposite, the hormones will go out of whack too, right? That's yes. Your point.
Yeah, so that's right, because that inflammation is disrupting the normal signaling of the brain chemicals to the rest of the body to make its own other hormones. So then you have this disruption in mood, and sometimes concentration, focus, memory are disturbed as well.
Well, so that just, I mean, you know, not that, I mean, all the young teenagers, especially, you know, when they're partying at night, so, you know, they're sleeping till like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know, and then they're disturbing the circadian disturbance. That's what's happening, if you think about it, right? Not that I'm going after the teenagers here, but overall, that's what most of the young people, or the young, you know, teenagers or something, you also see a higher level of depression and mental health issues, because it could also be related with their circadian disturbance.
That's correct. And also because not only do we have this super chiasmic clock that's related to the sunlight and the daylight, but also we have body clocks or these
Yeah.
switches in our own organs. So each organ, including the gut, actually has a particular rhythm and clock itself. So if that circadian rhythm of day and night is not actually aligned with the rhythm of the gut, there can also be some types of dysfunction that occurs.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So the interesting thing is what happens in the sense like, does the poor sleep cause the imbalance in the gut microbiome, or the imbalanced gut microbiota cause disruption of the sleep? Which happens? Like, which way? Is it a two-way like this, or is it this goes here and that goes there?
So it's often when I start seeing people with chronic illnesses and chronic symptoms, it becomes a vicious cycle. So
Yeah.
often it's a different trigger for each person. So that's why, as part of the process of assessing each individual, we want to take a very good history, the background of when the symptoms started, what was their lifestyle, what was their diet before, were there any external stressors such as work stress or moving stress or external stress, but also looking at what is their regular diet, what are they actually eating, putting into themselves. So there's that intrinsic or internal stress as well. And they can both in combination be impacting this particular person. So because our bodies are so resilient at managing inflammation and at making sure that everything is in balance, it takes a little while or something really or a bit of a crisis to then trigger some of the symptoms. So the question is a hard one, because for some people it is the food that they're eating. For others, they might not be eating badly, but there could be some type of significant trauma that
Yeah.
then causes those symptoms.
So what? So what are the? I mean, as a functional medicine MD, what is the on a high level framework? What is it that you recommend that people do to restore their gut health and sleep harmony? I should say that.
So actually the first thing that everyone can do is look at the quality of your diet. So that's very, very important, because a lot of the nutrients that help to feed good flora in our gut come from whole foods. So I'm talking about foods that are fresh, that are natural, that are minimally processed. So if you're eating foods that are mostly out of a packet, and it's often not full of nutrients, so white bread or white sugar. So those are the types of food that we know and we have seen that actually disrupts directly the gut flora, even in the minute that you eat this. So it's not the actual sugar that's the problem, but where is the sugar found? Because if we look at whole foods like fruits and vegetables, for example, they contain also other ingredients like antioxidants and phytonutrients that protect and that also give nutrients to us, to our cells. So we want to be eating fresh whole fruits, not sort of like the candies in the store or the chocolate bars. So if you have a sweet tooth, we want to pick those types of foods first. And also when we're eating whole fresh vegetables, we're getting good sources of fiber. So these types of ingredients or parts of the food actually feed our gut flora. They feed the good gut flora. So it's very important that we choose foods correctly. So we also want to look at, and we also want to consider and start reading labels on packaging of food to look at what chemicals are in there, because you'll be very surprised that there's a whole host of ingredients that are preservatives, that have numbers on them that are not part of nature. And so our bodies actually don't deal very well with them, and they can actually cause a disturbance in the balance of good and bad flora. So that's the number one thing that everyone can do tomorrow, is start looking at the quality of their food. And the second thing I really want to talk about, particularly because we're so used to stress all the time, a lot of people are eating on the go. So when you're eating on the go, you're not really thinking about chewing your food. And actually starting to chew your food properly enhances or improves your digestive process, because that digestive process actually helps you to break down the food before it goes to feed your gut flora. So if you're not actually breaking the food down, they can actually sit in the gut for a really long time, and the less beneficial gut flora then starts to ferment those foods. And that can cause symptoms of bloating, it can cause inflammation, it can cause gut stress, it can either cause constipation or diarrhea. So it's really important that we actually mindfully eat our food. So chewing at least 20, 30 times before we swallow with each mouthful actually improves that digestive process.
Wow, 20 to 30 times of chewing any food, that's quite a bit though, if you think about it, right?
Yeah, it is. But that's something that our bodies are designed to do. It's designed to sit down quietly to eat food rather than sort of looking at the computer and or talking, I mean, in a business call, and we're really supposed to focus on that process, because food actually starts in digestive process actually starts in our mouth. So it takes time. It's not something that if you're someone who's used to eating on the go, it might not be so easy. But it's really just focusing on the taste of the food, the smell of the food, the look of the food. So when we eat with our eyes, our mouth, our smells, our nose. So enjoy the food that you eat.
So so what are your thoughts? And anyone who has any question and comment, you're welcome to do that. I see quite a few people are joining. So what about the fermented foods or anything, for instance, like fermented foods or some of the spices, like Asian spices? I mean, I grew up in India with all kind of spices. If there's any gut issues, just take some spices. In functional medicine, as an MD, do you also incorporate some of the other Eastern type of spices or medicine along with it, or it's only diet and supplements?
So it really depends on the severity of the condition. So if people have tried all the different strategies and they're doing all the changes in their diet, but they're still getting symptoms, so sometimes I do prescribe a combination of different things. So if they have some issues with low stomach acid, for example, then there could be hydrochloric acids that we can give in a capsule. And because everyone's digestive capacity is different, we can titrate those doses. And stomach acid is really important because it does help to protect against harmful bacteria. And also it helps to start the digestive process in the small intestine. So that means that I do prescribe some of this depending on the symptoms. There are also digestive enzymes that we use in allopathic medicine, but they are also available as plant extracts from supplements. And the key there is that when we prescribe these supplements, we know particularly that is the correct dose and of the correct quantity and quality to give you a result. So apart from these enzymes and acids, sometimes I would also use ginger extracts. Because ginger also helps calm the digestive system. It also helps to reduce inflammation in the gut. And when you talked about spices, we also have turmeric here in Hong Kong or in Asia. So turmeric is, again, very, very good antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. And also peppermint. So you can actually get peppermint capsules. And peppermint also helps to reduce symptoms of bloating and cramping. So apart from peppermint tea, they can also come in capsules, which is also an option for some patients. But when you mention fermented foods, I have found that some people who have really severe bloating may not tolerate them. So they might have to build up to it, or they may have to fix a different dysfunction in their gut before they're able to tolerate fermented food. But it is part of our Asian culture. We have miso, we have kimchi, we have tempeh. So it is in small amounts. It is definitely a part of our culture. So it's very interesting to see that that we already have strategies like that to improve our gut flora.
No, I think that's fascinating, the way you described all the different things that one can do, like using peppermint, ginger, turmeric, and even for so some of the capsules are also available to help with sleep, right? Sleep disorders also. So do you also prescribe things like meditation and yoga or tai chi, or is it only like food only, or does it also comes with other kind of exercises?
Definitely, the stress management part is really important because a lot of people can have a lot of anxiety, and anxiety, even when whether it's something we perceive or something that's really causing a lot of anxiety, it does increase the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight and flight nervous system. And unfortunately, when that's activated, our digestive process, which is predominantly a parasympathetic nervous system, which is sort of more the calming, the resting, the secretions of our gut, gets inhibited in that process. So if someone is very, very anxious, then the strategy is to look at deep breathing techniques, nasal breathing techniques, because nasal breathing actually helps to activate the parasympathetic system. Or if they're really able to find something else to distract themselves, because a lot of the stress occurs in overthinking. So a lot of people have a lot of thoughts in their heads, and that can be a disturbance for them in terms of sleeping. So things like listening to music, or even singing, or drawing, or journaling, all these things can actually help to calm that overactive mind and that overactive sympathetic system, so that they're able to calm their bodies down before bed. So all these different kinds of strategies to improve your sleep hygiene. So for example, not going on the computer after sundown, and making sure that we're not exposed to blue light, because blue light tends to inhibit melatonin, which is very important for getting sleep. So either if you are having to work, doing shift work, or if you're having to work with people across the hemisphere, then wearing glasses that block these blue lights can actually help to alleviate these problems. So these are definitely other strategies, and making sure also that the size of the meal before bedtime isn't the largest, because if you're asking your body to digest, then yeah, that can be very difficult and can disrupt your ability to sleep also.
Absolutely. Someone asked a very interesting question. They said, what inspires you in your wellness practice? What is your inspiration for your practice?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I went and studied allopathic medicine, thinking that I would be able to learn all the different lifestyle strategies to prevent disease. But what I then realized was that we only really had a tiny, less than 1% of our course was taught about diet and nutrition and exercise. And so when I actually went through the whole entire process, I realized that I didn't really learn enough about how to prevent. And so that's why, and so that's why when I went to hospital, I thought, what if all these people knew what was good for them, and they had the tools to help them make the change in their habits? Really, we can reduce all these chronic illnesses, because 80% of chronic illnesses can be managed and treated with diet and lifestyle strategies. So I had that knowledge, but I didn't know how. So I went across, and I actually went to different nutritional colleges and kept learning. So as I was practicing, I kept learning, and as I learned new information, I started incorporating some of these into my practice, and slowly over the years, my practice really became a place that people would come to, because they wanted to understand what are the lifestyle strategies, and what can I do that's right for me, because we're all unique and we're all different, and so this particular journey made me realize and appreciate how we're all very unique, and there's no one diet and there's no one strategy for everybody. But if we are curious and we start to ask ourselves and question what's good for us, and explore and be open-minded, you can really start to be more proactive about your own health. And I can really see people change the way they live their lives, and how having better control of their symptoms really help them to see that they're not trapped in a body that's in chronic pain, or not able to sleep, or having insomnia. So that's what really inspires me.
I think it's a fascinating journey. MD talking about prescribing not medication, but prescribing nutrition and food and breathing exercises. That is the future of new medicine, the functional medicine or holistic medicine, or whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. And that's what we are talking about. That food as using food as medicine, using diet as medicine, your lifestyle as medicine, not medication as medicine. That is the ultimate, that is what we are trying to say. Anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Lorena, before we wrap up the session?
No, that's pretty good. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share my passion.
Absolutely. And to all the viewers who are watching us, please help us share these sessions. We are bringing these sessions to you every single day. Well, thank you for doing a thumbs up over there. And any questions you have, you're welcome to reach us. If you're watching the recording, if you have any feedback, any comments, how we should be doing, you can watch us every single day on Insta and even on FB for new topics. And this is, by the way, MG. We bring Dr. Lorena from Hong Kong, who's prescribing lifestyle medicine, diet medicine, food as medicine, breathing as medicine. So listen to her and start incorporating some of these things. With that, I'd like to wrap up the session. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.